I said I have no report since we'd have a big, long one.
And I would have a big one.
Mhm. No report? Oh, my God.
Never make up something quick.
No, no. I said I have no report since we'd have a big, long one.
That was me before that.
It was on YouTube, Kyle.
Oh, good.
I already signed
I don't have a signed one for me.
it. Okay. Yeah, no, I just meant I gave that to Jen.
She may have it, but I just have it's from my copy.
Yeah, no
here.
problem.
Thank you.
Just so you guys know, it's recording. Ron, Council President Arcaro.
Okay. County City Council for December 21st, 2020 is now in session. Roll call, please.
Council President, Mr. Arcaro,
Present.
Mr. Emery,
Here.
Mr. Goff,
Here.
Mr. Kozeski,
Here.
Mrs. Ledford, Mrs. Ledford. Oh,
Here. Excuse me.
Mrs. McVoy,
Here.
Mr. Moiseo,
Here.
Council President, Mr. Hockaday.
Whoop, manager.
Oh, I'm sorry, City
Here.
Manager, Mr. Hockaday, goodness,
Here.
sorry. Finance Director, Mr. Williams.
Here.
Law Director, Mr. Smith.
Here.
Looking at the wrong thing.
Okay, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic that stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay, move on to approval of the meeting minutes for December 14th, 2020. Are there any alterations or corrections? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I second.
Second by Mrs. Ledford.
Pam's mic out.
No.
Can you hear me?
Now we
Yes,
can, yeah.
Mr. Arcaro,
yes,
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mr. Kozeski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
okay, the meeting minutes for December 14th, 2020 have passed. We do have an awards presentation this evening, and with us in council chambers tonight is Louise Cleveland from the Health Department, also with Health Director Michelle Blood, and they are already up front there. So Mr. Moiseo, if you could join them, and Ms. O'Connell, if you could read the certificate into the record, please.
Yes. Okay. The employee for the month of December is Louise Cleveland. Louise Cleveland is the Director of Nursing for the Conneaut City Health Department. She has worked with the department since May of 2011. She has been an outstanding employee and a joy to work with. Louise is hardworking and dedicated to keeping her community safe. She has gone above and beyond her duties and is a true reflection of the Conneaut Health Department. Given her medical background, she has been at the front lines of this pandemic and has done nothing but shine for her community. Louise has always desired to be helpful and professional and regularly made herself available to coworkers, consultants, and others when assistance was needed, even if it was not related to her job duties. She always performs her duties with the intention of doing what is best for the citizens of Conneaut. Signed, John Arcaro, Council President, Terry Moiseo, Council Member, dated this 21st day of December.
Yay.
Thank
Good
you.
job,
for the-
Louise.
Congratulations.
Congrats. Well
Great.
deserved.
Can I just say that this is greatly appreciated, but I really think our whole department deserves this award. We all have been working extra hard during these last 9 months, and working with them makes my job all that much easier. And I appreciate all of the coworkers as well. So thank you.
Very nice.
Thank you, Louise. Yes, Michelle did relay that it was a difficult decision, but you're very well deserving. We appreciate your efforts. Do you have anybody with you tonight?
So, thanks, Boy Scout night.
Okay. Congratulations once again. Okay, we'll move on to a special presentation tonight. And as I indicated, we have Michelle Blood, our health director, and she would like to say a few words.
Yeah, so I just want to give you guys kind of an update on what's going on right now. Can you guys hear me okay?
It's a little bit
It's low.
Yeah, it's
low.
hard.
Yeah.
A little.
All right. So as of today at 4 p.m., we're actively monitoring 77 cases. We have a total cumulative case count at 438. Right now, we do have 7 people who are hospitalized. Currently, this last week, we have unfortunately had 3 more deaths, giving us a total of deaths at 10. We've had 351 individuals resolve. Just from last week, we are averaging 9.7 new cases a day right now. That is our biggest increase per day for the entire 9 months that we have been monitoring. Right now, we are at 64% community spread and 36% congregate living for Conneaut City. I do just want to make you guys aware. I know that I talked to you guys a couple weeks ago about the stay-at-home advisory recommendation. All 3 health departments did meet, and we did extend that deadline for the stay-at-home recommendation until January 2nd of 2020. That is the stay-at-home advisory issued by the local health departments of Asheville County recommends that residents only leave home to go to work or school, or for essential needs such as seeking medical care, going to the grocery store or pharmacy, and picking up or receiving deliveries. I know the big question that's been around recently is the vaccine for COVID-19. We will be receiving a very limited supply of COVID-19 vaccine within the next couple of days. This vaccine will be used for emergency medical service workers and for health and medical personnel providing direct care to COVID-19 patients. At this time, we are uncertain as to when additional shipments of COVID-19 vaccine will be delivered to Conneaut City. Once we receive additional information from the Ohio Department of Health on when and how much COVID-19 vaccine will be sent, we will be in a better position to inform other eligible at-risk occupational groups and individuals on what on when they can get their COVID-19 vaccine. So that's kind of just the little update that I have for you guys for tonight.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the health director?
Michelle, I have a quick question. With Christmas coming on, are you guys worried about people getting together?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
So we definitely did see an increase after Thanksgiving. We're expected to see another increase after Christmas. Obviously, we want, if people are going to gather, we want them to just gather with their immediate family within their household. That's our recommendation for holiday celebrations.
So you're kind of saying everyone should sort of stay in their own bubble, is that right? Who they normally see all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to reiterate that. I am kind of worried about it since our numbers are already increasing. It scares me with Christmas coming. So
We are
hopefully,
too.
yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for the health director? Okay, if not, thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
Okay, we'll move on
Thank you, guys.
to citizen comments.
Um,
Citizen comments. Okay, hearing none. Communications.
I have none this evening.
Does council have any communications? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to reports for our administration, beginning with the city manager, Mr. Hockaday.
Okay, it's only been 1 week since our last regular council session, so I don't have a great deal for you tonight. We did have our first US DOT meeting regarding the port infrastructure grant. That was this past Friday. It was just a general outline of the process and what the path forward looks like. Our Port Authority has been working on a marina expansion project collaboratively with the city of Conneaut. We were noticed that $850,000 of state capital funding was allocated to the city of Conneaut for that project. And then I wanted to give you a final update on our demolitions, which have been sitting on our to-do pending list literally all year. So like a true Christmas gift, the equipment is on site and those demolitions are going to be proceeding this week. So it's been much awaited. So the last thing I wanted to note with council is, as you know, our grader that we use on our country roads had some mechanical issues some time back. What we have done is we've had a mechanic come in-house. We checked a couple of the kind of obvious things. It is having some kind of serious engine malfunction, so it will likely either have to have the engine pulled or and reworked, or it will need to be replaced. Otherwise it's operational. It did have an engine overhaul in 2013. So this would be the second rebuild on that engine. So we're still pricing that out and looking through those options as to what that would be. Just so you know, in 2013, that engine overhaul was $24,000. So it's not an inexpensive fix. To piggyback on Health Director Blood's report there, our early warning system in wastewater is very accurate in my opinion. Last week we saw a jump from about 350,000 parts per million in our wastewater to about 3.5 million, which was our highest recorded level. And in kind with that, it was a 10x multiplier. We did see that bear out in our caseloads. So I think it's a fairly accurate predictor. We were getting maybe 1 or 2 cases a day, maybe 3 cases a day, and now we're 10, sometimes 14, 15 cases a day, depending on the day. So that continues to be very troubling. Obviously, we've seen a little growth in the congregate living communities, but for the most part, we continue to see cases that are community spread cases, and it is incredibly widespread. It is worrisome, particularly within families that may still get together for the Christmas holiday. Just be conscientious of the members of your family and friends, and take whatever necessary precautions you need to. There was a widely circulated Cranes Cleveland article where the governor said, well, there was really no Thanksgiving bump. I think what we've seen over this past week, and over 70 new cases here in Conneaut. I would disagree with that assessment. And of course, he's looking at statewide data and we're looking at just Conneaut data. So we are seeing increases here in our community, and that's the most important news, not necessarily what else is going on in the state of Ohio. So I just want everybody to be mindful of that. That is all I have, unless there are any questions.
Mr. Hockaday, regarding the demolitions, could you just briefly go over the locations so the public's aware?
Of course. 299 Cleveland, 175 15th Street, and 396 Madison.
Okay, thank you.
And those are CDBG funded. We're doing those in conjunction with the Office of Community and Planning Services of the county.
Okay. Does council have any questions for Mr. Hockaday? Okay, if now we'll move on to the Finance Director, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Arcaro. In light of the ordinance, our last ordinance of the year and of the evening, 11820, I thought I'd give you an update on the street lighting fund. I did pass out a spreadsheet about a week or two ago, and I did have some updates on there. And for the public as well, since that is a consideration this evening. Just to give you a summary of where we're at, and going back to the beginning of the year, we had a cash balance carryover in the street lighting fund of $3,982.78. The reason we had that cash balance was we deferred payments that from November and December usage, and because we just didn't have the money in the fund to pay for it. So if we consider that fund balance in the November and December 19 usage invoice, which was $41,075.45, that left a deficit of $37,092.67. If you still have that sheet with you, if you look at on the left-hand side at the beginning cash balance, our 2020 tax receipts were $28,879. Our usual collections about $33,000, but because of the depressed income tax collections, we're about $5,000 short. The street lighting fees were $156,266 year to date. That's down about $8,105 from last year. And then we have a street lighting reimbursement of $1713.36 that we receive that on a recurring basis. So we had a total receipts plus cash balance of $190,000. Total expenditures to date is $195,916, which leaves a deficit in that fund right now of $5,074.24. We're projecting another $4,000 in revenue from the income tax and also from the street lighting fee. November and December invoices are estimated right now at $32,000. That leaves a projected balance of negative $33,074.24. If you look at just without that fund balance carryover, which really wasn't a carryover in consideration of the invoices that weren't paid, if you just look at revenue versus expenditures, we're under about $37,000. So on tonight's agenda, we have a proposed increase of 25 cents. If you look at the number of street lighting accounts, we have 4,650 street lighting accounts, but some of those accounts receive more than the $2.50 fee. There are approximately 6,200 separate fees, including apartment complexes, trailer parks, and things of that nature, duplexes, triplexes. So we're looking at a 10-cent increase generates approximately $6,400 annually. A 25-cent increase would generate roughly $16,000, which would cut that deficit in half. It's not going to completely eliminate it, but it will at least allow us to defer that December or pay the November bill and then defer the December as a payment in January. That's not the recommended budgetary practice. The recommended budgetary practice would be to encumber the December bill in December and pay for it in January, but the fund balance does not permit it. We also appropriated $12,000 additional dollars in the general fund to help pay some of these bills for this year. So the general fund is contributing towards the payment of these bills. But I just wanted to give you an overview and the public an overview of what's happening in the street lighting fund. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Okay, any questions for the finance director? Okay, thank you, Mr. Williams.
You're welcome.
Move on to the law director, Mr. Smith.
No report.
Okay. Move on to our reports of any standing committees. Does anyone have a committee report? Okay, hearing none. Move on to liaison reports. And hearing none there either. We'll move on to our ordinances and resolutions for this evening. And we have one ordinance on the table and 8 ordinances to consider in first reading. And we'll begin, Mr. Hockaday, if you have any update on 8820 on the table.
Yeah, no update since last week.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to our first reading ordinances for this evening. And we will begin with ordinance 11120.
An ordinance approving the editing and inclusion of certain ordinances as parts of the various component codes of the codified ordinances of Conneaut, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Okay, Mr. Smith.
Yes, this is our annual year-end codification of ordinances that we pass that affect our city code. So it's a fairly standard thing. When we do that, we also update the city code to meet the state code on traffic and criminal cases that are misdemeanors, so that our police department can charge a local charge. And that way the village or the city gets the fine money rather than the state.
Okay, very good. Any questions or comments regarding ordinance 11120? If not, is there a motion to proceed?
Mr. Arcaro, I'll make a motion to declare ordinance 11120 an emergency.
There's a motion to declare ordinance 11120 an emergency. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Ledford.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Gah,
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
Mr. Mosio, the emergency has been declared.
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the 3 reading rule on ordinance 111-20.
Motion to suspend the 3 reading rule on ordinance 111-20. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Mr. Emery.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Gah,
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
Mr. Mosio, the 3 reading rule has been suspended.
I'd like to make a motion to act on ordinance 111-20.
Motion to act on ordinance 111-20. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Kozowski.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Gah,
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 111-20 is passed. Move on to ordinance 112-20.
An ordinance to make appropriations for the city of Conneaut, Ohio for the year beginning January 1, 2021 and ending December 31, 2021, as further described in section 1.
Okay, Mr. Williams.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, this is the proposed 2021 budget. Most of the differences or the changes in this budget as opposed to last year are due to capital. Just for the public's benefit. The capital, we're looking at sewer, about a $514,000 capital budget. Some of the larger ones were the Buffalo Street sewer replacement and a 10-ton dump truck, as well as a SCADA, whatever that is, for $70,000 and some general sewer lining. At the water plant, we have a very large project rebuilding the water plant filters, the variable speed drives, low service pumps, and valve turners. That's about $1.5 million. That took up the vast majority of the capital budget at the water plant. The water distribution has the Route 20 Phase 2, which is about a $500,000 project. We're looking at a grant of $130,000, $50,000 loan. But total capital there is about $727,000. In the street department, we included the West Main paving reconstruction, the $4 million small cities grant. We also included the Center Road Bridge construction of $310,000, Chestnut Street storm sewer $858,000, and then the Route 20 paving overlay from Viaduct to I think that should be actually the Kingsville line, but it says to Parish Road, $450,000. So we're looking at about 5.66 million in capital for the Public Works Department. The vast majority of that is covered through a grant, and then there's a $50,000 loan on the Chestnut Street storm sewer. In the police department, we have 3 new police SUVs for $135,000. New jail doors in the jail for about $40,000, about $190,000 total there. In the police department, or I'm sorry, in the fire department, I have still listed on there the Marks radios, but I know that's going to be discussed next year, but that $50,000 was removed from the $120,500 total. It will be resubmitted next year if council approves that. And then in other projects, we have the Conneaut Dredge Material Facility, which is about $10.1 million. That's covered by grant. The renovation of 221 Broad Street, $750,000, and then the ODNR paddling grant. That's a grant for $27,000 and a $50,000 match. So total capital and equipment in this budget is $19,776,679. 15 million of that is covered, 15.7 million is covered through grant, 2.2 million in loans, and a local match of 1.8 million. We've been through the detail on the budget at various times. We went through the revenue budget. Council does not actually authorize the revenue budget. You authorize the appropriation budget. But I did give you estimated revenue to review. This may be revised before the end of the year, before it actually goes to the county. But as I said, that does not require council action. As far as expenditures go, I gave you a budget summary estimate by funds. So each of the funds that's listed in the detail is given a summary here. Just cover a couple of them. The general fund, we're looking at a fund balance of about 1.35 million unencumbered. Estimated revenue for next year in the general fund, about 4.8 million. Estimated expenses, about almost 5.8, with a projected carryover next year of 371,000 unencumbered. Street department, as I've indicated many times, it's the most difficult fund to balance. Right now, I have an estimate in there of about $100,000 carryover. We may need to advance funds. I'm not sure at this point. There is an ordinance on the agenda tonight considering that possibility. But we're looking at estimated revenue of about 1.8 million and about 1.867 million in estimated expenses for the street department. I'm just covering the operating funds. As far as water and sewer, we're looking at about a $1.6 million carryover, about 2.4 million estimated revenue, 2.9 million estimated expense for a carryover projected at the end of next year of 1.1 million. Water is 890,000 carryover, 3.6 million in estimated revenue, 4.1 million, almost 4.2 in estimated expenses, and a projected carryover there of about almost 400,000. I did that for each of the funds: enterprise funds, agency funds, debt service. We have none anymore. General bond retirement is zeroed out, as well as special assessment bond retirement. As far as the largest capital projects, we have the street improvement program with an estimated carryover of about 95,000. Next year, we're estimating expenses of 514,000 and revenue of about 486. So we also have some new funds in there for critical infrastructure, CDB allocation, and the Chestnut Phase 3. In total, we're looking at a projected estimated unencumbered fund balance in all funds of 5.6 million. Estimated revenue for 2021 is 27, almost 28 million. Estimated expenses next year are the actual appropriation budget that you'll be approving tonight is $30,268,430.38, leaving an estimated unencumbered fund balance next year of about 3.3 million. So that's kind of an overview of the budget. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, Mr. Hockaday, regarding the $750,000 for the Broad Street building rehabilitation for the public's benefit, could you just briefly discuss that and what is the share from the city?
Okay. Right now, as projected, there are going to be multiple occupants of that building. We anticipate doing an RFP for occupancy. City Council is looking at utilizing the first floor for city operations. The Conneaut Municipal Court has requested to potentially utilize one floor of that building for their new special docket services. We have some interest in some leased space from kind of allied community agencies, the Chamber of Commerce, the Conneaut Foundation, and another interested mental health agency in taking a floor of that building. So the way it is presently designed is the city would outlay the debt service and manage the master contract. However, rents and leases from those various agencies would recompensate the city for its principal and interest payments to service that loan. The city is also committed a NOPEC Powering Our Community grant in the amount of approximately $36,000 for that same project. So all told, we're hoping, and we don't have a final number until construction would be completed, but we're hoping that those rents, leases, and grants would zero out to the city. So the city would have minimal or no ongoing payments from its own proceeds or revenue lines, if those rents and leases and grants would cover 100% of that. So that is budgeted for 2021. However, we have a great deal of work to get completed, including receiving written commitments and LOIs. Obviously, we would not induce a loan until we have those items in place. So it is budgeted, and it's something I look forward to working with council on, as well as those various other community partners and agencies. So, hopefully this would be something, and having a collaborative space, just like we are now, and having a online digital room here where this is becoming more of a standard practice that we have Zoom meetings and so on and so forth. This would provide a collaborative space for city council, as well as those community agencies like the Conneaut Foundation or the Chamber of Commerce to have their board meetings and be able to utilize that same technology, become more of a shared space that's useful to a wide range of people. We do have very limited meeting space here within the city. Our council chambers is our largest room. So oftentimes, and the public nor council may not be aware of this, but we frequently do trainings from this room as well. Everything from our water plant guys doing their licensure, wastewater doing licensure meetings. And as more and more meetings are becoming remote and we're not traveling places, having access to technology for not only council, but administrative departments is incredibly important. So we tend to be very squeezed for space. And I think that would be a tremendous step forward. We could make some of these kind of ad hoc adjustments that we've made in this room a more permanent feature of a meeting space. So I look forward to that project. I think there would be a number of community benefits, not only to the city, but kind of our broader agencies that serve our community.
Okay, very good. Any other questions or comments regarding the 2021 budget? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion to proceed on ordinance 112-20.
I'll make a motion. This is Tammy Ledford to suspend the 3 reading rule on ordinance 112-20.
There's a motion to suspend the 3 reading rule on ordinance 112-20. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Mr. Emery.
Sorry, is there a second?
Second by Mr. Emery.
Thank you. Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Gah,
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moisia.
Yes.
Okay, Mrs. Ledford, the 3 reading rule has been suspended.
At this time, I'd like to act on ordinance 112-20.
This motion to act on ordinance 112-20. Is there a
Second by Rick Goff.
Thank you, Mr. Gah.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Gah,
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moisia.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 112-20 is passed.
Mr. Arcaro, can we pause for 1 minute?
Yes.
Come on, Lance.
Trying to get it. Having a hard time picking pen, but she needs to get closer to her mic.
It wasn't working.
Okay.
I can swing this one over.
That one, or she can move over, whatever.
Okay, I'll swing this one over. You know if that works.
That's all.
Okay.
She needs to get closer. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, technical difficulty.
We're used to it.
I think we're good.
Okay. Thank the administration and all of council for their hard work on this budget. I believe it's the biggest budget we've had in some time. Correct, Mr. Williams?
Yeah, this is probably the largest we've seen in quite some time. And this does not include the port infrastructure grant of 19.5 million. We'll probably record that sometime later in the year. So this will probably be closer to 50 million.
Okay. All right, move on to ordinance 113-20.
An ordinance to amend the 2020 budget through appropriations and fund and interfund transfers attached hereto and marked Exhibit A.
Hey, Mr. Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Arcaro. This is our normal year-end budget amendment. We usually address salary and pension benefit line items that need adjusting. Every increase in the general fund has been offset with a decrease, so the net impact on the general fund appropriation is zero. We had $12,900 in increases, $12,900 in decreases. We added about 15,000 to the police levy, and that's just a way of apportioning or allocating, depending on the revenue that is received by those levies, way to allocate those differences between the general fund and the levy. In the Office of Justice Fund, we're now receiving reimbursements for overtime as well as some money for equipment. So what I did is I adjusted the equipment, decreased it by $9,372.03 and added it to the overtime reimbursement where it's needed. But the net effect on that, it's a grant fund anyhow, is zero. The large one here is the $438,000, the no proceeds for disbursement to the Port Authority. Once the council approves that note tonight and we receive those funds in our bank account, we'll issue a check to the Port Authority for the debt proceeds in that amount. And then the last one is water treatment. There was some additional need for an increase in wages and about $1,000 in overtime. And we had some severance pay. We're having a director that's our manager that's leaving. So the increase there was 10,400, the decrease 10,400. The net effect on the water fund is zero.
Okay. Mr. Hockaday, regarding the amendment for the fire department overtime, is that COVID money or general fund money?
Well, the COVID money became general fund money when we made that global payment into it. But ostensibly what depleted it initially was our staffing at the beginning of the year. From March to July, we had significant staffing increases in the fire department, one, to prepare for that, but they were also monitoring and handling access to the building. So they had additional staff doing temperature checks and screenings at the door. After approximately midsummer, the courts started their security program and the metal detector downstairs. So those duties transferred and it lessened the burden on the fire department. But we had already eaten up a significant chunk. John, I don't know if you recall what they utilized from March to July, but it was significant impact on their budget.
All right. Yeah, I was actually surprised that it lasted as long as it did. We had 55,000 appropriated. Right now we spent 57,000. It is that appropriation line item is in the negative, and that is to get us out of the negative and also cover the last payroll of the year.
Okay.
So in total, we'll have appropriated about 61,000 in overtime for the fire department.
Okay.
And just to give you some historical, in 2018 it was 58,000. 2019, I think we had somebody off sick for an extended period of time. It was 67,000, and it'll be a total of about 61,000 this year.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments regarding ordinance 11320? If not, is there a motion to proceed?
I'd like to make a motion to waive the 3 reading rule on ordinance 113-20.
So motion to suspend the 3 reading rule on ordinance 113-20. Is there a second?
Second, Goss.
Second by Mr. Goff.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
Mr. Emery, the three reading rule has been suspended.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to act on ordinance 113-20.
Motion to act on ordinance 113-20. Is there a second?
Second,
Second by
Mr. Moisia.
Mr. Moisia.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mr. Kozeski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
yes,
Mrs. McRoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moisia.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 113-20 is passed. Move on to ordinance 114-20.
An ordinance to transfer a total of $25,000 from 101-901-59300 transfers within the general fund to the police and fire pension funds and the amounts listed in section 1.
Okay, Mr. Williams again.
The police and fire pension funds, at least these separate special revenue funds, are funded through millage, mainly inside millage. About half our inside millage goes to fund these. It's not quite enough, so what we do is we set up transfers. We don't want to reallocate the millage if it's not needed, so we do transfers. Council had budgeted $72,000 in transfers to these funds. We previously transferred $20,000 to the police department and $15,000 to the fire pension fund. So this, if we add the $15,000 today, it'll be $35,000 of the 40, leaving a remainder of $5,000 that we don't need to transfer. And in the fire pension fund, including this transfer, would be $25,000, which leaves an additional $7,000 that will not need to be transferred. So as I said, these are budgeted every year. It's approved by council. But in order to actually transfer that cash from the general fund to these funds, it requires council action.
Okay, very good. So will that explanation suffice for 115 and 116 as well?
Probably not.
Okay, then we'll,
But we have discussed them before, but if you want to just
no,
pass
that's,
them, that's
okay. I just wanted to give your voice a break.
okay.
Okay, move on then. Is there a motion to proceed with ordinance 114-20?
I make a motion to waive the three reading rule on ordinance 114-20.
So motion to suspend a three reading rule on ordinance 114-20. Is there a second?
Tammy Ledford, I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Ledford.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mr. Kozeski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes,
Mrs. McRoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moisia.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Kozeski, the three reading rule has been suspended.
Move we act on 114-20.
Motion to act on ordinance 114-20. Is there a second?
Rick Goss, second.
Thank you, Mr. Goff.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mr. Kozeski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
yes,
Mrs. McRoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moisia.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 114-20 is passed. Move on to ordinance 115-20.
An ordinance to authorize, if necessary, advances from Fund 101, advances within the general fund to the following funds in the amounts listed in section 1.
Okay, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Arcaro. Now, the next two ordinances are similar. They're advances, they're temporary advances of cash to funds that are in the negative at this time, in a cash negative. We had advances set up for Chestnut Middle Road paving. We did receive that money today from OPWC, the $248,247.96. So that one is actually not necessary, and I did take it out of the 2021 budget as far as repayment back to the general fund. Lake Road Storm Sewer for $120,499.03. We're hoping to receive that as well because they were submitted around the same time. The only one I'm not sure of is the NOPEC grant, which is for $35,000. We may have to advance funds for that. The other one is another advance, the 11620, which is similar to the previous one. The only difference on this one is this is an advance for the street department. This one is a not to exceed. There's not a specific number that we need at this time, but it's up to 150,000 if I would determine it necessary in order to do that, in order to put that fund in balance. So these two ordinances are very similar.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on ordinance 114? 115, excuse me. Okay, if not, is there a motion to proceed?
I'll make a motion to waive the 3 reading rule on ordinance 15-20.
Okay, there's a motion to suspend the 3 reading rule on ordinance 115-20. Is there a second?
Second by Rick Goff.
Thank you, Mr. Goff.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo, the 3 reading rule has been suspended.
I'd like to make a motion to act on ordinance 115-20.
So motion to act on ordinance 115-20. Is there a second?
Tammy Ledford, seconds.
Thank you, Mrs. Ledford.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 115-20 is passed. Move on to ordinance 116-20.
An ordinance to authorize advances not to exceed $150,000 as determined by the finance director from 101 advances within the general fund to the following funds listed in section 1.
Okay, we heard Mr. Williams' explanation unless he wants to talk again.
No, that's fine.
Okay. If not, is there a motion to proceed?
This is Tammy Ledford. I'll make a motion to suspend the 3 reading rule on ordinance 116-20.
Okay, there's a motion to suspend the 3 reading rule on ordinance 116-20. Is there a second?
A second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Emery.
Second, Rick.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
Okay, Mrs. Ledford, the 3 reading rule has been suspended.
This time I'd like to act on ordinance 116-20.
So motion to act on ordinance 116-20. Is there a second?
Rick Goff, seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Goff.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 116-20 is passed. Move on to ordinance 117-20.
Fiscal Officer Certificate to the Council of the City of Conneaut, Ohio. As Fiscal Officer of the City of Conneaut, I certify in connection with your proposed issue of $438,000 notes to be issued in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of providing funds and cooperation with the Port Authority to pay costs of A, a portion of the debt service associated with acquiring, constructing, reconstructing, and improving boat docks and slips, together with all necessary appurtenances comprising a part of a public marina. B, engineering and design of a transient marina, together with all necessary appurtenances. And C, the construction of self-storage units on Day Street, which will be open to the public, together with all necessary appurtenances. Improvements 3, and together with improvements 1 and 2, the improvement that 1, the estimated life or period of usefulness of the improvement is at least 5 years. 2, the estimated maximum maturity of the bonds calculated in accordance with section 133.2 of the revised code is 17 years for improvement 1 and 10 years for improvements 2 and 3. Being my estimate of the life or period of usefulness of those improvements, if notes in anticipation of the bonds are outstanding later than the last day of December of the 5th year following the year of issuance of the original issue of notes for such improvement, the period in excess of those 5 years shall be deducted from that maximum maturity of the bonds. 3, the maximum maturity for the notes for improvement is December 31st, 2032, being the last day of the 20th year from the date of the original issue of notes issued for this purpose. The maximum maturity of the notes for improvements 2 and 3 is the last day of the 15th year from the date of the original issue of notes for this purpose. Dated December 21st, signed John Williams, Director of Finance, City of Conneaut, Ohio. An ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of $438,000 notes in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of providing funds to pay costs of, in cooperation with the Conneaut Port Authority, A, a portion of the debt service associated with acquiring, constructing, reconstructing, and improving boat docks and slips, together with all necessary appurtenances comprising a part of a public marina. B, the cost of engineering and design of a transient marina, together with all necessary appurtenances. And C, the cost of the construction of self-storage units on Day Street, which will be open to the public, together with all necessary appurtenances, and entering into a fourth addendum to that certain cooperative agreement between the City of Conneaut and the Conneaut Port Authority dated May 24, 1994, and declaring an emergency.
Okay, Mr. Hockaday.
This is what we discussed a couple meetings ago with Port Authority Chairman George Peterson. Obviously, there's the 3 elements in there. One that's important to note is within that is the approximately $60,000 that's owed in repayment to the city. The city satisfied the last bond anticipation note on behalf of the Port Authority, so that money needs to be reimbursed to the city prior to the end of this year. The transient dock and the expansion and engineering costs, I think, are relatively self-evident. And as Mr. Peterson stated and presented to council a couple meetings ago regarding the storage units, they anticipate that they may be able to move forward with that in 2021. If they are unable to do so, they will owe principal and interest to the city to satisfy that, and then would seek to reissue in 2022. John, did I miss anything in there?
No.
Okay, any questions or comments regarding ordinance 117-20? Okay, if not, is there a motion to proceed?
I'll make a motion to declare ordinance 117-20 an emergency.
So motion to declare ordinance 117-20 an emergency. Is there a second?
Rick Goss, second.
Thank you, Mr. Goff.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mr. Kozeski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Ledford, the 3 reading rule has been suspended. Or the emergency's been declared, excuse me.
Thank you. I will suspend, I'd like to suspend the 3 reading rule on ordinance 117-20.
So motion to suspend the 3 reading rule on ordinance 117-20. Is there a second?
Angel McVoy seconds.
Thank you, Mrs. McVoy.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Gah,
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
Okay, Mrs. Ledford, now the 3 reading rule has been suspended.
All right, at this time, I'd like to act on ordinance 117-20.
So motion to act on ordinance 117-20. Is there a second?
Rick Goss, second.
Thank you, Mr. Goff.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Gah,
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 117-20 is passed. Move on to ordinance 118-20.
An ordinance to amend section 921.02A1 street lighting fee of the city of Pontiac codified ordinances to establish new street lighting fees.
Okay, we heard Mr. Williams' explanation in his finance director's report. Are there any other questions or comments regarding this ordinance? Yes, I would just like to say that this is something that hasn't been done in 4 years. And in my opinion, if we don't keep up on these small incremental increases, then we would have to be hitting the public with a larger increase, and that's not something I want to do. So I was definitely in favor of moving forward with this increase. Any other questions or comments on ordinance 118-20? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to proceed.
The motion to suspend the 3 reading rule on ordinance 118-20.
The motion to suspend the 3 reading rule on ordinance 118-20. Is there a second?
Tammy Ledford, second.
Thank you, Mrs. Ledford.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Gah,
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Emery, the 3 reading rule has been suspended.
Thank you. I would like to motion to act on ordinance 118-20.
There's a motion to act on ordinance 118-20. Is there a second?
Angel
Rick
McVoy
Goff.
seconds.
Second by Mrs. McVoy.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Gah,
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 118-20 is passed. That concludes all of our ordinances before us this evening. And this year, I might add. So with that, we'll move on to unfinished old business. Okay, hearing none, move on to miscellaneous business.
I just would like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Ms. Mosio?
I would like to echo the sentiment Mr. Mosio just put out. Just wish everyone have a safe holidays and a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and hope we get through this and enter in 2021 a better year.
I'd like to do the same. Yeah, and wish everybody happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I know this wasn't the year we had hoped for, but I think everybody has put in a lot of hard work through our departments, through our city hall, and I would just like to thank everybody for all their hard work. Health department, everybody. And I know I can speak for all the newbies on the group. This wasn't exactly the first year we thought we would have, but we did it. And hopefully next year we'll bring in better times. So thank you all. And I enjoyed working with everybody. It's been a good year, all in all. Thank you.
I wish everybody a happy holiday. And it's been a weird year. And I'd like to thank everybody in working with me. Thank you.
I'd also like to wish everybody a very blessed Christmas and a happy, healthy, and safe New Year.
Okay, very good. Yes, I'd like to just reiterate everybody's comments. It's been quite an interesting year. We accomplished quite a bit. Congratulate Mr. Hockaday on a number of the projects that came to fruition this year with all the problems that we've had, and also what is on the burner for the following year, and certainly hope that 2021 will be a much better year. And again, Merry Christmas to everybody. Continue to follow CDC guidelines and wear your mask. Thank you all. Okay, if there's no other miscellaneous business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Arcaro, there is one other miscellaneous.
Mr. Goff.
Got a couple complaints on the dirt roads. Mr. Hockaday, is there anything we can do to fill in them holes? I know we don't have a grader.
Yes, so if you want to relay those to myself or Joe DeBell directly, then let me know where they're at and we'll see what we can do.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Mr. Moiseo.
Mr. Arcaro,
Yes.
Mr. Emery,
Yes.
Mr. Goff,
Yes.
Mr. Kozowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ledford,
Yes.
Mrs. McVoy,
Yes.
Mr. Moiseo.
Yes.
Hey, City Council for December 21st, 2020, and the year 2020 is adjourned.